You know, a wound from a stranger, it can heal clean. But a wound from your own family, that's different. It doesn't just cut your skin, it cuts to the bone. And for me, that feeling will always be tied to a cheap ceramic water bowl, one painted when one was 17. It's strange, the things that stick with you. I don't really think about their faces anymore. But I can still feel the weight of this water bowl in my hands. It's a heavy, clumsy thing from a craft store. I painted it myself, the summer I turned 17. The blue glaze is cracked now, a fine web of lines running over it. The B in Buster is lopsided, leaning into the U like it's tired. It was the very last thing I grabbed before I walked out of that house for good. The only thing I wanted. You see, a family isn't always about love. Sometimes, it's just a system you're born into, a set of unspoken rules. In our house, the rules were simple. Rule 1. My brother William was the sun. The rest of us were just planets, expected to orbit him. Quietly. Rule 2. I was the black hole. The place where disappointment went. His A-plus papers were museum exhibits on the fridge door, held up by fruit-shaped magnets until they yellowed at the edges. Mine were met with a heavy sigh from my dad, the sound of a man burdened. He'd hand the paper back without really looking. Just try harder. William got a gleaming silver sedan for his 18th birthday. The keys in a little velvet box. I got a bus pass and a lecture on financial responsibility. You learn not to fight it. You learn not to expect the sun to even notice you. You just build your own little world in the shadows, a place with its own gravity, and you try to survive there. Buster was the center of my world. He was the only thing in that house that was truly mine. I found him in a cardboard box behind a supermarket, during one of those miserable, driving thunderstorms. Just a tiny shivering ball of matted fur, all bones and huge, terrified eyes. I remember the smell of rain on the pavement, and my hoodie soaked through, sticking to my skin. I just tucked him inside my jacket and ran. My savings from the cafe job, the money that smelled of burnt coffee and disinfectant, it all went to him. Vet bills, shots, a soft bed. To my parents he was a mess. Your problem. And I just said, fine. He was my problem. He was the 3 a.m. whining, and my feet hitting the cold floor while the rest of the house slept. He was the warm weight on my knees while I cried over homework, his soft snores the only sound that made sense. He was my shadow. I'd talk to him for hours, tell him everything I could never say out loud. He was the one living thing in that universe that looked at me like I was the sun. Everyone knew the deal, even if they never said it. William got the praise, the car, the future. But Buster? Buster was mine. That was my territory. My one non-negotiable line. The day I moved into my own apartment, I thought I'd finally made it. I can still smell the fresh paint, that clean, chemical scent of a new beginning. It was a tiny one-bedroom with a noisy radiator, but it was mine. Every square inch. Before I even signed the lease, the first words out of my mouth to the landlord were, "Are you pet-friendly?" I had this picture of Buster in my wallet, a goofy shot of him with a toy in his mouth. And when I signed those papers, I felt it. I was finally building a real home. For us. And that's when the trap was set. It didn't look like a trap, it looked like concern. I went to the house to pack up Buster's things. His bed, his toys, that lopsided water bowl. My mother stopped me at the door, her hand on my arm. She was stroking Buster's head. "Just let him stay here for a week or two, honey," she said, her voice so soft and reasonable. "It's a huge change for him. Don't be selfish. Let him adjust." It sounded so logical, so caring. And that word, selfish, that was the button. It was always the button they pushed with me. And God, I was so desperate for just a crumb of that so-called caring, that I walked right into it. My first mistake wasn't agreeing. It was believing, even for a second, that the kindness was real. A week bled into 2. Then, a month. A knot of pure dread started twisting in my stomach. Every time I'd call, ready to get him, There was a perfect excuse. Oh, William had a terrible day. He just needed to throw the ball with Buster to cheer up. You understand? Or, we just had the carpets cleaned. It's better if he stays put. Then the pictures started. On William's social media. William, who had never once picked up a bag of dog food. Suddenly, he's posting selfies with Buster. The captions made me feel sick. #DogDad. #MyBestFriend. There was one of them on the couch, William grinning at the camera while Buster just looked confused. A picture of Buster in the passenger seat of his sedan. It wasn't love. It was a performance. They were stealing my story and repurposing it as a charming accessory for his perfect life. It felt like watching someone wear my skin. My hand was shaking when I finally called her. I tried to keep my voice even. Mum, I'm coming to get him this Saturday. No more excuses. A pause on the other end. A long-waited silence. Then, her voice, coated in that condescending sweetness. We'll talk about it then, dear. That one word, dear, it was a warning siren. I knew. I was walking into an ambush. And I was right. I walked in that Saturday, and it was a courtroom. Mum, Dad, and William, all sitting in the living room. A tribunal. My first thought, a cold spike of fear was, where is Buster? I couldn't hear his claws on the floor. The silence was the first sign. My dad cleared his throat. The sound he makes before delivering a verdict. We've been thinking, he started, looking at a spot over my head, and we've decided it's in Buster's best interest to stay here. The words just hung there, in the air. My brain couldn't process it, the sheer audacity. His best interest, I managed. He's my dog. Then came the killing blow. From my mother. She leaned forward and she smiled, not a real smile, the one she reserved for my deepest failures. Soft, pitying, and utterly contemptuous. Her voice was like honey laced with poison. Honey, she said. William and his girlfriend are buying that lovely house in the suburbs. You know, with the huge, fenced-in yard. They're a proper couple, settling down. Buster deserves to be happy in a big house, with a real family. A real family. The phrase sucked all the oxygen from the room. I could feel the blood drain from my face. It wasn't about the dog. It had never been about the dog. It was a final judgment. On me. My life, the one I had built for myself, wasn't real. My little apartment wasn't a home. I wasn't a family. I was just a placeholder. All that love I had poured into that little animal, it was all just disposable. A prop. To be handed over. They had finally done it. They had crossed the one line. The only line I had ever drawn. I should have screamed. I should have fallen apart. But I didn't. Instead, a strange, cold calm washed over me. A clarity that feels like ice in your veins. In that moment, the years of trying, of hoping, of twisting myself into knots for them, it all just evaporated. I looked at their faces. My father, looking so self-righteous. William, with that smug look on his face. And my mother, her expression was pure triumphant pity. I saw them for exactly what they were. For the very first time, I just nodded. Slowly. I see, I said. My voice was a whisper. And I turned around and walked out. I came back the next day. Sunday morning. 10 a.m. I knew William would be at brunch. I knew my parents would be getting ready for church. I didn't knock. I slid my old key, the one they'd forgotten about, into the lock. They were in the kitchen. My mother gasped. My father's face hardened. What is the meaning of this? He boomed. I didn't look at him. My eyes scanned the rooms. I put 2 fingers in my mouth and let out the sharp, piercing whistle I'd taught Buster as a pup. For a second, silence. Then I heard it. The frantic scrabbling of claws. He came tearing around the corner, yelping, his whole body wiggling with a joy so pure it almost broke me. He jumped into my arms. I clipped the brand new bright red leash I'd bought onto his collar. You are not taking that dog, my mother shrieked, her voice thin with rage. That's when I finally turned to look at her. The ice was still in my veins. The calm was absolute. This was never about what was best for Buster, I said. My voice so low and steady it didn't sound like my own. This was about reminding me of my place. You took the one thing I ever loved without condition, and you tried to use it as a weapon. I shifted my gaze to my father. You crossed a line there's no coming back from. I turned and walked to the front door, Buster trotting happily beside me. My mother's voice rose to a scream. If you walk out that door, you are no longer a part of this family. I stopped at the threshold, my hand on the doorknob. I looked back at her. And for the first time, I think I smiled a genuine smile. It wasn't happy. It was just final. Real family, you mean? I asked softly. Don't worry. You made it clear yesterday I was never part of it to begin with. And I walked out. I got in my car, Buster in the passenger seat, and before I started the engine, I pulled out my phone. I blocked my mother's number, then my father's Darcyman, then William's spouse. I blocked them on everything. Later, I sent a single, short email to my extended family. Due to a deeply personal and unforgivable action, I have chosen to permanently end my relationship with my parents and brother. This is final. Sometimes, sitting here in my quiet apartment, Buster's head rests on my foot, snoring softly. It's not lonely, it's peaceful. They spent years taking things from me, my confidence, my worth, my peace. But in the end, by being so cruel, they gave me the greatest gift. They gave me the permission I needed to finally leave. They gave me my freedom, and I took the only thing that ever really mattered with me.